the fuck up. It's time to talk business. Jared Taylor, Matt Best, and Evan Hafer proudly present Blackhearted. Sponsored by Black Rifle Coffee Company and Arson Wave.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, Jared and Tyler.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there.
Yeah, so we're recording this Thanksgiving. We're in Salt Lake City, and Tyler, where are you?
Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful Las Vegas. In your cool house? Have you been to his house yet?
No, I've only heard about it.
Yeah, you can push one button and the thing turns into Fort Knox.
Oh, gosh. I wish I had. Tyler's never invited me to his house.
Actually, to be fair, it's more secure than Fort Knox, Jared.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. But there's nothing to sit on there, by the way. It's just
I've heard this.
He's got his guns all have a nice, comfortable place to sit, but the house doesn't have any place to sit.
All right, we have to introduce you. Tyler Gray is one of our longtime friends. I don't know. How long have you known him, Jared?
I think we're going on 7 years now, Ty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Around there. God.
And I met him through Andrew Ho too. Like,
wow.
Of all people.
Out of all people.
Hey, you need to meet Tyler Gray, and the one guy that's not military in our group.
I would say this, that your life is better if you are friends with Tyler Gray.
Absolutely.
He is just he's just a great guy.
Now you're blatantly overstating.
No, it is, man. You're just like positive energy almost, I would say 99% of the time. I've never actually talked to you when you're not like full of.
Even when he's angry, though, it's still fun.
5x the more energy than anybody else in the room. And man, life is just better with Tyler Gray. That's what I would say.
That's the motto.
So, Tyler, introduce yourself in a way that our listeners can get a greater understanding of who you are, where you came from, where you grew up, what you did in the military, what transition was like, and what you're doing now.
All right, I'll have a brief. The important part, what we want to talk about is transition. So I'll give a brief kind of synopsis of, my past. Then I'll kind of separate the transition because it's obviously a much more critical subject. But I grew up in a relatively kind of a mid-sized town, an hour and a half north of LA, called Bakersfield. Bakersfield's weird because it's the Texas of California, kind of like Austin is the California of Texas. So it's this weird farm town, nexus within California. So everyone that hates California, they don't necessarily have to hate Bakersfield. It's very different from California. Anyways, as a kid, all I wanted to do, two things. I loved movies and TV, and I loved the military. I mean, I know you guys have seen it, but I mean, I've got my mom is visiting for Thanksgiving, and I mean, every time she shows me a new picture, I've either got some toy gun in my hand, or am wearing camouflage. So it's just always something I want to do. My grandfather was a World War II vet and a cop, and pretty much my hero was a kid. So when I was able to join, I did. I was lucky enough. I went in, the recruiter said, "What's the hardest thing that you can get me a guaranteed contract for?" Had no interest. I just always, and this is a question I get a lot, I always wanted to be in the Army. I don't know, never really had any interest in any service other than the Army. I don't know. The Army just felt like, the Army. I don't know.
It's got that iconic, it's the Army.
Yeah.
It's the Patton thing, It's
just the Army for me, just I was always drawn to it when I was a little kid, and I mean probably 7, 8. I need to find a recreation of it, but I had a Ranger poster on my wall, and then I had this SF poster. I had this SF booklet. I mean, I would go to recruiters and get pamphlets as a kid. Obviously, they just gave me them so I'd leave the office. But one day I walked in old enough to actually get their interest and just said, "Give me the hardest contract you got." At the time, 18X-ray wasn't, or the SF option, I forget what it's called now, but that wasn't on the table back then. a Ranger contract was now called, I think, an option 40 from what I'm hearing. But I took that, signed up, and I joined. And it's critical too to note that I joined years prior to 9/11, and I was actually going to get out because I was just like, look, I joined the military. I'm kind of sick of basically scrimmaging, every day, all day long. Like, I really want to, actually do something with this skill set, with this group of guys, with this team. So when Afghanistan happened, I re-enlisted for 6 years. And I got to deploy. I spent most of my time in Ranger. I was in 2nd Ranger Battalion in Fort Lewis. Spent most of my time as a sniper. Deployed to Afghanistan as a sniper. Worked with a specific Army unit, and I was attached to them for a bit. Had such a great experience that when I got back from that deployment, I made up my mind that I was going to try and go there, which I was luckily able to do. And I spent the rest of my career there until I got hurt in Iraq. So that's kind of the quick down and dirty. And then I spent, after getting, hurt, I went through surgeries and rehab for, I think, about either 2 or 3 years. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been 2 years back and forth of surgeries and then a year of just nothing but rehab. And that kind of leads us into transition. And from that, I was medically retired. And then I had to transition to a new lifestyle, one that I wasn't used to.
Well, I think to provide some context too, you did a documentary a few years ago about some of the obstacles that you dealt with transitioning. Could you talk a little bit about that and kind of where you were mentally, and if it helped actually move you through that?
Absolutely. So when I got out, I was medically retired. I got out. I didn't really. I was in a weird position because I chose to medically retire because they basically told me there was no way I could go back to a team. So I was just so pissed off at the whole thing that I just said that I'll get out. Like, because if I can't do the job I was doing, I will not be able to watch people deploy without and not go. Just, it'll kill me. So I ultimately chose to medically retire, which actually made it worse on myself because it was my decision. Right. Ironically, at the time, this is like 06, 07. Ironically, at the time, I'm like, look, because I think they told me it was like a 30% chance I'd possibly be able to return to a team after like 5 to 7 years. At the time, I'm like, 5 years, best case. And I mean, again, this is a 30% chance for, in 5 years. I'm like, dude, in 5 years, Afghanistan's already over. This is like 06, 07. Right. Afghanistan's done. Iraq's going to be done. There's going to be nothing to do. Now, obviously, I couldn't have been more freaking wrong. But, ISIS wasn't even a word except on the TV show Archer. But, right. I can't fault my logic because it made sense, but little did I know what would, how things would turn out. So, transition wise, I got out and I had really no concept, of how difficult it would be. And a term that people well, you just need to reintegrate. You just need to reintegrate. And I, the documentary where that came from was people kept telling me things, reintegrate, talking about, quote unquote PTSD, and these are the issues you're going to experience. And this is why you're feeling the way you're feeling, all these different things. I had a lot of people telling me, from the mental health community, from, society at large, like everyone's telling you all these things, but I'm sitting there going, that's not right. It's not how it feels. Like, what you're saying doesn't make sense to what I'm going through. And even the concept of PTSD, I was like, that's not how I feel. It's wrong. And so the documentary essentially came from me spending a ton of time, and by a ton of time, it was filmed over 4 years. It was me figuring out, I had to come up with a new theory that basically explained how and why I was feeling what I was feeling, because what they were telling me didn't fit the puzzle. So I had to figure out a new kind of a new picture to where why all the pieces were kind of falling together. So that's pretty much where it kind of came from. And then once I started kind of putting those new starting arranging the pieces into a new picture that I had kind of imagined, then everything started falling into place, and everything made 1,000% more sense. And as things made more sense, I started to transition and adapt, and just everything changed for me. Everything started falling into place once I figured out what the actual problem was. And what the actual problem wasn't what everyone was telling me it was.
Yeah, I want you to kind of
It's
press on
something
that.
completely
You came up with that term LTSD in your documentary.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, go down the rabbit hole
Yeah.
because we've all talked about this a lot.
I always mention it in every time we get a chance to speak. I always talk about your documentary. I talk about your concept of LTSD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So LTSD. So kind of to go back to go forward, but PTSD. It just everything that they're saying, and actually I'll preface this prior to the other thing. I'll preface this by saying, the problem that I figured out early on with PTSD, the term of PTSD is PTSD has nothing to do with the military. It has nothing to do with veterans. It is in no way, it's not specific. It is a very, very, very broad term. You could legitimately have certifiable PTSD from, being in a car accident, from being in an earthquake, from being a kid and being yelled at by your dad every time you touch the TV. I don't.
You know what?
So,
I'm on board with you with that because I explained this. I was talking to a paramedic the other day. I said, I would have much more trouble with what they do. I think they have it much worse than we did. And how I put that out is when I stepped out the gate with a gun in my hand, I knew we were going to get in a fucking fight. Like you knew you're expecting the worst. So, but being home where you live and picking kids up out of a ditch after a car accident and stuff like that, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah, no, I've had that conversation actually with several EMTs and law enforcement as well. I mean, the first responsible, it's one thing to see, it's one thing to see the results of violence or even just tragedy outside your country, but seeing it happen to kids inside it's completely different. And yeah, I agree. I can't imagine what they go through, but so PTSD again, when in my opinion, what happened is they said, okay, this is obviously something affecting mental health of our, veterans that have been overseas. And this goes back obviously way prior to our war. It really goes back to around Vietnam, obviously way back World War II timeframe. It was shell shock, then it became PTSD. And then, people are like, oh, no, it's PTS, get rid of the word disorder. I mean, you're polishing the brass. When you have a problem with the D on PTSD, you're polishing the brass on the Titanic because the whole statement's going down. The problem with PTSD is it's a very, very broad term. And they're using a very broad term in context of us combat veterans. They're using a very broad term to try and explain the issues of a very specific group of people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So it's just like one label fits all. And what it really comes down to in the mental health community is, there it's in the DSM, and I forget what DSM stands for, but it's basically their book of mental health disorders. They want something. If you're a mental health professional, you want someone to walk in your office, they have an issue, and you go, "Oh, this fits within this problem."
Right.
And I think that's our problem, is that the reason that the mental health community has been so behind is because they're trying to treat the wrong thing. That's my opinion. So,
Well, so
enter,
define LTSD now. What your theory is?
yeah. So enter my, because the PTSD label didn't fit. It didn't make sense to me for so long. Everyone's going, "Oh, you should, you're probably having nightmares about getting blown up, and you're probably having issues with thinking about war and all these different things." And I'm going, no, that's not it. So, and I don't know if you guys even heard this, but I'll tell you where LTSD came from. Have I ever told you the story of where I came up with the term?
No.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so all right, so this is a good time to do it, and I'll make it brief. But so what happened was, a couple years back, we were filming this. No, sorry, this is right prior to filming the documentary, and I was doing a bodyguard job. I was in Los Angeles. I had just got done. I think it was a Grammy After Awards or something. I don't know. So I'm driving on Sunset Boulevard at like 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. And I was tired. I'd worked like a 12, 14-hour day, whatever it was. I was worn out. And next thing I know, I am surrounded by fire trucks. Not just coming from behind me, but they're coming straight at me in my lane. I'm the only car on the road. And I'm like, what the fuck? And, they stop, and I look over to my right, and there's this little sushi restaurant. And it's on fire. I can see the flames. I'm probabprobably, from the street, it's probably 125 yards ish, but I can see it's on fire. And I'm like, holy shit. That's why that's why the fire, cause they drove straight at me, stopped the car, hopped out, and, they didn't give a fuck. So, how often do you see the actual flames of the fire, when they're happening? So, the firemen are all hopping out. They're running towards, with, guys are trying to get hoses. The next thing I know, I am running in the middle of the parking lot towards this fire. And I look over, and I get there. I get to the sushi restaurant, and I look over, and there was like one firefighter. I don't remember how many there were, but one of them, by the way, striking up a quickie saw because they had to cut open the door to get in. And I look over at one of the guys, and he's looking at me pretty much dumbfounded, like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And he didn't even say anything yet, but he looked over at me, and his look just told me, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? So I literally, I walked away, and it happened so quick. They didn't even have time to tell me to piss off. It was that fast. But I started walking away. I got back to my truck. Again, I could have gone around, but because I was blocked by fire trucks, I could just sit in my truck. I didn't have to move out of traffic, or there was no traffic. There was really no cars. But anyways, point being is I sat there, and I just sat there and went, what the hell's going on? And you know what the weird part of it is? That was the best I had felt since the night I got hurt.
That's
just without thinking.
And well, the thing is I was like, why did that feel? Why did I? Like, what was that? What the hell was I doing? Freaking, I'm not a firefighter. What the hell am I doing? Like running with these guys? What am I doing? And I had so much adrenaline, and I just felt great. I also felt bad. But I was really reminiscing to the feeling prior to the firefighter looking at me, which was I felt so freaking good. And that's where I came up with the term of LTSD. I'm like, I don't have post-traumatic stress. I have lack of traumatic stress disorder.
Well, and it makes so much sense. Like you're saying, when you come in the military at 17, 18 years old, and your life is preparing for a mission and then executing a mission, and then you come home and you get out, or you get hurt and you get out, and there's no more mission.
Yeah.
That's when you're just like, what do you do with yourself?
No, there is no mission, and let's
Right.
just let's define mission another way, or not define it, but just use another word for mission. And mission is a collective word, but within a mission, within each individual member of a team participating in that mission, what do you have? Well, you have purpose,
Right.
and if you lack a mission as a team, but Jared, you bring up a good point, because what we lack as individuals is purpose. What we also lack when we get out is we lack a mission. And then on another level, we lack the team in which we had purpose and in which collectively we did a mission together.
When you did your TED Talks, you had brought up the perfect point of, the hires in the military are just almost high when they think that we're going to create somebody that is supposed to be numb to killing and death and ready to go do this for decades of their lives, and then expect them to come home and be perfectly normal.
No, it makes absolutely no sense. And the thing with LTSD is, we have lack of traumatic stress. So
Right.
once you have been conditioned, and I think it's a combination of nature and nurture. I think to a degree you're built for it, and then it's kind of refined and honed and increased dramatically in training and in combat. But what you essentially have is you've got, we've been trained to be comfortable in chaos. War is chaos. Combat is chaos. We have been trained to be comfortable in that chaos. So once you're comfortable in that chaos, what happens is it becomes the reverse is true as well. Once you're comfortable in chaos, you are now not comfortable when there is no chaos.
Yeah, and I see this a lot, and I mean I felt it a lot. I think that, and I've given it I've given it a lot of thought. Where, we have 50 some guys that work for Black Rifle Coffee. A lot of them are vets, and I see a lot of vets. What they'll do is they'll try to induce stress to their environment in order to get something that they're more comfortable with, because they're actually not comfortable with the calm. And I noticed it.
Yeah.
I noticed it in my own personality where, I would get spun up, and I had to kind of take a step back and look at myself and go, why am I getting so spun up? This is stupid. Oh, okay. So I'm just trying to create stress in my life because I think, because I'm comfortable with chaos, and I'm way more comfortable with chaos than I am with I guess what people would define as normal condition.
Well, exactly. And that's the other thing is what I realized is that, when the chaos is in the environment, your brain is calm.
Right.
When the environment is calm, the chaos goes into your brain.
Right.
So the only way that you can take your brain back to that calm state is, like you said, to create that chaos within the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you create that chaos? Well, you can freaking drink too much. You can have super risky behavior. You can get on a motorcycle and ride 100 miles an hour. You can get into a fight with your girlfriend, get into a fight with, there's a million, get in fights in general. You can do a lot of things to create chaos in your environment, to basically calm your brain. And the thing is, it's not necessarily what I learned is, once you understand the why of what you're doing, then it's a billion times easier to start to, when it happens, you go, oh, I know why I'm doing this, and now I know how to correct it. But until you know the why, it just seems like it's happening without your control, and you really can't put it together on. It just seems like it's impossible to fix something that you don't know the cause.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think a lot of guys they're actually afraid to face what's going on, right? And I mean, really smart guys I've seen do this a lot. I mean, time and time and time again, you're like, man, you're just causing chaos in your life for a combination of reasons. You just actually need to cut all of that out. And there was a time when I was going back and forth a lot, and I was actually at home for an extended period of time because I broke my sacrum, or my back, and my so I was laid up for a few months doing this, and I remember I was just laying in bed and I was fucking super stressed out for no reason, and I was actually healthy enough. I went out and did like 3 jumps that day. So I drove up to the drop zone, did 3 jumps that day, and I was like, oh man, I feel so much better. It was just like, I feel so much better because I hadn't jumped for a while. I got this huge, adrenaline spike, 3 rotations.
there
I
it
came
is.
down and I was like, okay, I'm good. And I was literally good for like a month after that. Like just fucking great. Because I mean, jumping still scares me. Like I'm not one of those guys that is, this is like, oh yeah, I'm just like slipping into the bath. Like it still fucking scares me. So, but I remember thinking, I'm like, okay, this is going to be an issue for me. Like down the road, this is going to be an issue for me. And I came back from Kabul on my last trip, and I spent like 3 months in the most remote wilderness area in the lower 48. And I was running like class 4 rapids. I was just like hoisting coolers and really just doing a lot of labor in silence, with like really strong peaks of adrenaline. And it allowed actually that time away, that disconnection and silence and the wilderness in conjunction with adrenaline dumps and hard fucking labor. That was it centered I could actually look at myself and go, oh, I can see what's going on. I know what's going on here. I have a decade of rotating back and forth and thinking that I'm going to get fucking blown up or shot every day. Like that has a profound psychological impact on your body.
Totally.
And you're not going to be right. And the thing of it is, I don't understand. You said it yesterday, I think, where it's like, everybody says that you have to transition and integrate back into society, and you have to accept like their norms as behavior. You have to accept those and you have to adapt those. Well, you're different. You're actually psychologically different, and I think you just have to learn how to like communicate with civilians so you don't scare them. I think you just have to learn. I don't think you're never going to be normal. When I say normal, you're never going to conform to a standard civilian. You're never going to be able to take those memories out of your head. You're never going to be able to be that person. It's not going to happen. So stop trying.
You can never go back to ignorance.
No. And why do you want to? Like, this is a very forging element within a person's psychology, and from my perspective, it is a tragedy, and in some things are tragic. But I look at I in some of the things that I look at, I'm like, man, think about the Jews that were in Auschwitz, and they were rescued, and then they came back and they actually performed at very high functioning levels within Israeli government. I'm saying like that's like worst case scenario for me. Where you've been taken by with your family, and you've watched your family members like be executed, and you're living in a labor camp starving to death for extended periods of time with like this is psychological trauma that is so acute you're never coming back, supposedly, right? Or the guys that were in Hanoi Hilton for 6 years being beaten by fucking sticks and strung up with the back of their arms. Like I'm not saying that guys don't have the issues. I'm saying like find the inspiration that you need. Like there are people that have gone through, I would say, worse. And they still have managed to hold to the line, hold it together, hold the line, and you don't have to worry about being normal. It's fucking, who cares about being normal? Normal people fucking suck, man. Like, they just suck. They sit in a fucking cubicle. They're 9 to 5. Normal people fucking suck. So why try? Who cares?
Yeah, no, I mean, so, the one thing you're talking about is, the way I see it is what you have to do, the key to transition, the key to getting out, in whatever capacity is, you got to find your mission. You got to find your purpose. You got to find your team. And it sounds simple, but that's what you're missing when you get out. The reason people have so many problems when they get out is they've lost their mission,
right?
They've lost their purpose, and they've lost their team. And and that's part of LTSD, because, lack of traumatic stress is when, people are telling me, oh, you're having nightmares about war. And I'm like, no, I'm missing it. I'm missing that adrenaline. I'm missing kicking down a door, or technically you don't kick doors, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm missing CB with my team in Iraq. Like, I'm missing all that stuff. I'm missing getting shot at. That was fun. Like, I'm bored. I'm bored out of my fucking mind.
Oh, God, Tyler.
I love it. That's what it is. I'm fucking bored.
All right.
Like, I went to a zip line thing with, this birthday party, and everyone's like, oh my God, that was amazing. And I'm like, dude, I fell asleep. I'm bored out of my fucking mind.
I know.
And people are like, well, no, wasn't that fun? And I'm like, no. I've maxed out the adrenaline scale.
Yeah.
How do I? It's like you've had the highest high from heroin ever. Like, where do you go from that?
Right. You're not gonna have the highest high from the drug and then be like, hey, you know what? I like this Nicorette. It's fucking good enough for me.
Yeah,
it's legit.
This works. Yes, it works.
Transition now. So, I love this story, and honestly, you should plug the documentary, because it's a really good documentary.
Yes,
so
I love it. I've seen
it
4 or 5 times.
Thanks. The documentary is called That Which I Love Destroys Me. It's, about pretty much some of the things talked about here, and it goes more in depth into a couple different stories on, again, not necessarily the why is so important. And the thing, nothing against the mental health community, but everyone wants to tell you, especially, here's a big thing that I do want to mention, is the biggest problem right now I see between military and veterans and PTSD, whatever you want to call it, transitioning.
Right.
I love it when people who haven't transitioned yet give transition advice.
Yeah.
That's the best.
It's the best. And you're like, look, dude, no offense, but this is the thing that if you're listening to this and you're in right now, just realize that someone who's out, they've been where you've been. They've been in.
Right.
But you haven't yet been out. And I can promise you, Evan will say the same thing. JT will say the same thing. I guarantee you it isn't what you think it's going to be.
No,
would you guys agree?
No.
I would second that, and I would also say, through work, it will set you free, which is idle. When I told this to people, I'm like, idle hands, dude, just go to work. It doesn't matter what you do.
Because
it doesn't matter.
Here's the pattern
just
that I've seen.
Go to work and don't stop, because that, when people stop and they start diving into their minds a little bit more, and they don't have a mission, they don't have a job, any job, man. I'm saying that just in the context of it doesn't matter. Go to work, get up, set a rhythm, set a mission, go to work. The
emails and messages that we get, and here's this pattern that a lot of the guys get stuck in. They get out, they jump on the GI Bill, they get VA benefits and disability from whatever they were hurt on, and then they enroll in online college, and they sit at home, and they drink, and they play video games, and then after about 40 days of that, you're now stuck.
Yeah,
you're not doing anything.
No,
and you're drinking, and that's it.
And you're drinking, so you're adding a depressant to it. You're being an introvert which is, you've detached from your tribe, you've gone basically into solitude, you're adding a depressant to it. Like, talk about teeing yourself up for failure, man. Like, think, from my perspective, it's like, man, think like, you have to be social, you have to be with a tribe, you have to go to work. Like, that is the single most effective thing I've ever seen as far as like just being able to get vets in the right frame of mind and get them to transition more effectively.
And I mean, I didn't even, just me personally, I've been moonlighting since 2006. Like, coming home after a deployment wasn't enough. I wanted to come home from my military job and continue to work on something else.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are you working on now?
What's
like,
now?
What are you
What's
working on now?
Tyler?
Well, so now, kind of going with that. So right now, I'm working on a TV show on CBS called SEAL Team. I've been working on the Hollywood thing since I got out. It's taken an enormous amount of time and effort. I mean, similar to you guys have been, people can see, what you guys have done, and everyone sees the success. No one sees everyone sees the results. No one sees the work.
Right.
And a saying that I absolutely love is overnight success takes 10 years,
Right. Right.
Like you, Matt, JT, all you guys were, Evan, Matt, JT, all you guys were working on things before you even got out.
Yeah.
In fact, for a while before you got out. So I think that's a big key that people don't understand either, which is you've got to start your transition before you start your transition.
Right. Well, and mentally, I'll caveat to that, which is like mentally, well, I did, and I've said this now on a couple different podcasts, I wrote my mission. So what is my mission in life? I wrote that out. And then I have subsequent missions depending on, Black Rifle Coffee flows into my individual mission statement. There's an operations order, which I continue to modify. Like, people think that that's not true. And it's like, it's absolutely true, dude. I would write fucking op orders for everything in my life. Like, and it's not even an exaggeration, because every day of my life for 10 years, I functioned from that board. Like, I can't, how can I, why would I not use that same template in my life? Because it fucking works for me, man. I can go through it and go, got it. This is like today's mission, and here's here's my situation. And you can cut pieces and parses out. Like, the execution is the most important piece. It really is. Yeah. You do have a lot of considerations, but man, write out a mission statement, write a fucking operations order, plan. And that planning process takes time. And I haven't accomplished my mission. When I say that, it's like, to be, like the mission statement, it's like my individual mission statement is to be economically, when I say that, it's economically free, meaning I have to be free in order to basically have a happy life. And when I say that, nobody can affect my decision making except for me. And economically, you can't work for other people and have all of your decisions be yours. So I'm just trying to own my life, and I'm not there yet. That's it. Like, I'm not there yet. So I'm still working on it, man. Like, that's the funny thing, is I'm still working on my mission.
Well, but you know what? I'm gonna add on to that too, which is, I think that's another problem is the thing that you have to realize, and not you, but what I tell people now is, I go, look, I don't care if you get out after 20 or 35 years, 20 years, or 4. Like, the day your service ends, is really the day, like, your service never ends. And that's the problem, is that people see their time in or whatever as a fixed time. And it's like, no, like, your life, you can never stop. Like, you can never, like me, I think about retirement. The concept of retirement scares the shit out of me. I'm like, I look at, like, I don't ever want to stop doing something. And It's one of those things, like, I think the problem is people are looking at they're looking for an end state. And I think one of the advantages that's worked for me is just realizing there is no end state. It never fucking ends. You're going to work this hard every day for the rest of your life, and then you're going to die.
Right.
Awesome. Like, why is that not? Why can't that be okay? Why can't it be okay to just, where I'm going with what you said is people make their missions, accomplishable, let's say within a year. Well,
Right.
they can run into the same problem. What now?
Right.
I would make your mission statement so broad that it's like, and I'm just going to give you a bad example, but it'd be like, help people.
Yeah.
That's never going to end. And that's great because that should be the point. The mission should never fucking end, because as soon as it ends, you're back to the same problems we've already discussed.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that's basically what it is. Is mine was so general to become basically economically free in order to explore what actual happiness is. Because I was fucking miserable the last couple of years. I was working for the government. I never wanted to find myself in that situation where, where I'm being depressed by a profession, right? So I have to be able to just push forward and say, I'm going to take ownership in this, but I have to be, and happiness is not defined day by day. That's some fucking bullshit. That's millennial horse shit, really. You have to be able to set out a mission and say, you know what is happiness? What does it look like? Define it for yourself, because there's the Webster's definition of it, right? And then there's your individual definition. And what does that look like? And business was one of those things. This is the vehicle, right? But everybody can grab a vehicle and achieve their mission. This is just the vehicle that I'm using to achieve like my individual mission. And I think that throughout the last few years, like we've talked about this a lot between you, me, Bert, Bert Koontz, who was on the last show. We've talked a lot about this, and I think it's like one of you guys, like you have no idea like the amount of work that goes into what Tyler's had to go through in the last several years, and it's just fucking awesome to see your success right now, because all that hard work is paying off. Like you've put in so much fucking time, so much work, you've been so dedicated that it's awesome to see all of that stuff like come into fruition.
Yeah, no. I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, same with you guys, but or not to say, but the invert, and I've had a lot of people say, oh, hey, good to see this and that, and I just the other day I was talking about it. The biggest mistake I think people make too with their missions or with goal planning or anything, and this is obviously broader than the military, but somebody asked me like, well, what's if you can give me one thing, what's helped you the most? And it's this. I stopped a long time ago, probably a year or two after I got out. But it was during the documentary I learned to stop putting timelines on any goals.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right.
And people are like, well, why? And actually how I learned this is this. So when I got blown up and my arm got all jacked up, I mean, I can't, it is physically impossible for me to bench press what I used to do. It's just,
right.
that muscle is gone. And I learned that there is a limit to willpower. Like we act like, oh, I can, if I wanted enough. No. When a muscle is physically not there, it's not coming back, at least. Right. So my point that I'm making is, I mean, I could still push myself, but my numbers are different. So I went, well, wait a minute. That's an interesting thing. Just like getting older, I talked to my dad. My dad goes to the gym. Oh, I can't lift as I used to. Well, no shit. You're 68 years old.
Right.
So the point that I'm making, and it's the same thing with goal planning, is people put these timelines on their goals. And then the problem is you don't control. There's a billion factors. You guys know this better than me, but there are so many factors out of your control. As soon as you put a timeline to something, it won't happen on that timeline.
Right.
You're going to blame yourself as if it's your fault in one way or the other. So the way I say it now is, don't focus on the results, focus on the effort, because
Right.
you can always give 100%, always.
Right.
You don't know what that 100% is going to result into. Like let's say it's a run, and I use this analogy a lot. One time, like let's say I run a mile in 6 minutes. Well, if I'm sick, I can maybe run in 7 minutes. But both the 6 minute mile and the 7 minute mile, those are both at 100% effort.
Right.
I just happen to be sick. So, but you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't write down any results. For working out. I don't write down results for any of that. Nothing. I don't give a shit about results. All I care about is effort.
Right.
And if you only care about the work and you focus on giving 100% every day, then that means if you just give yourself 100% effort every day, then that means you are a level 10 success every fucking day.
That's fucking incredible advice. Like that's like
I think this episode is going to be great. I think we're gonna,
man, I
think
tell
people are
you,
gonna
like
this.
I stepped out of my office the other day. I walked down the hall and I had to like lay down on the couch because I was just fucking spent. I had a like brutal morning, and I'm like, and I felt like, wow, this is weird. I got to like lay down for like just like 10, 15 minutes, man, and I really felt guilty. But then I came back like, psychologically, like it only took like 2 minutes, where I'm like, I have to, I gave it all this morning. Like I got nothing left. Yeah. Like I just have to lay here for a second and just like clear my head, turn off the lights. And, it's not like I'm George Costanza putting my alarm clock underneath my desk, right? I'm just like, dude, I did everything that I could do that morning, and I'm not leaving anything on the table. And that's like a common thing that's really helped me too, which is like I just step in every day and go, I'm not going to have anything left. Like when I close my laptop at the end of the day, or send my last text, I don't have anything more, man. I can't give anything more. It's done. You can't. Yeah. But that sponge has to fill up, through the evening, or sometimes you got to take a break. But if you don't leave anything, you don't have any doubt. And there's really, that's like a huge psychological boon. Like I don't really cruise through the day going, man, I wish I would have given more effort yesterday, because it's never a fucking question, actually. it never even crosses my mind.
Well, cool. Hey, Tyler, tell us where people can find you. Instagram, Facebook, all that.
Yeah, so Instagram, Tyler A. Gray with Grey on the last name. Facebook, I'm really bad at, but I do have a page up there under the same name. And and then the documentary's called That Which I Love Destroys Me. That Which I Love Destroys Me. You can find it online. I think it's on iTunes, and then you can also find it if you just search That Which I Love Destroys Me documentary. You'll find a link to the Take Part
awesome.
Page.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. Well, we're going to put links and everything, guys. And thanks for your time today, Tyler. I know it's Thanksgiving, so thanks for your time.
No, thank you, guys.
We'll check in with you in a few months and see how everything's going.
Black Rifle Coffee Company, along with Arson Wave, would like to thank you for tuning in to Blackhearted. Have a great fucking day.